Hello everyone, welcome to Unacademy. Very good evening to all of you and welcome to India's largest e-learning platform, that is Unacademy. And you are watching Unacademy OPSC. My name is Samrat Sir Mishra. I have started discussion on climatology, geography, as it is important subject for the civil service preparation both for preliminary as well as mains examination. That is why I have started discussing different important topics from geomorphology and climatology. इस सेशन में आम क्लाइमेटोलॉजी डिस्कशन कर टेम्परेचर एटमॉस्फेरिक प्रेशर बेल्ट डिस्कशन अच्छी आज आ पूर्व जो मैंने लास्ट क्लास देखी नथिबे देखन से माने हिस्ट्री को जाइके वीडियो देखि पारिबे पुराना वीडियोस देखि पारिबे रिकॉर्डेड वीडियोस आर देयर Unacademy Plus को सब्सक्राइब करिया पई यूज करंतु रेफरल कोड EGOS so that you will be getting 10% discount on your course fees. So my today's topic of discussion is atmospheric pressure. We'll discuss about atmospheric pressure and pressure belt. We'll discuss about these two things, atmospheric pressure and the pressure belt. So let's first understand what is the meaning of atmospheric pressure. In my last classes, while discussing about different constituents of atmosphere, I discussed there are three constituents: solid, liquid and gases. In the solid, there are dust particles and particulate matters. In the liquid, there is water vapor. In case of gases, there is carbon dioxide, there is oxygen, there is nitrogen and other gases as well. And these constituents, they have certain weight. They have certain weight. When they exert their weight upon the surface of the earth, a pressure is created and this pressure is known as atmospheric pressure. This pressure is known as atmospheric pressure. So atmosphere, it is an open system. This is an open system. So as it is open system, the gas laws, they are not applicable in this case, and hence temperature is inversely proportional to pressure. Increase in the temperature, that will lead to increase in the pressure. Increase in the temperature, that will lead to increase in the pressure. There are now let's discuss different factors which affect the pressure on the surface of the earth. The factors can be divided into two parts. The first is the thermal factor and the second one is the dynamic factors. In the thermal factor, there are two things. One is the amount of insolation and the second one is the angle of incidence. In dynamic factor, the first is the rotation of the earth rotation. The second is the Coriolis effect. The third is the geostrophic force. We'll discuss about all these factors one by one. Let's discuss about the first one, that is insolation. Insolation means incoming solar radiation. So the amount of insolation or incoming solar radiation, it decides the type of pressure which is going to be there. So let's discuss about on the surface of the earth. Let's discuss about the equator. On the equator, there is more temperature, means the insolation is very high. As the insolation is high, there will be intermolecular space between different particles, and hence I can say there will be increase in the volume. Increase in the volume means the density will decrease. Density is equals to mass by volume. Volume decrease over, that means denominator decrease, increase hochi volume ati, So volume increase means denominator increase होची, denominator fraction तो increase हुए, so fraction value decrease हुए, and the fraction at density देखो, so there will be less density, and less density always leads to low pressure, and hence at the equator a low pressure will be created. जेहेतु equator रे होची, सेठी में हमको कहबा equatorial low pressure belt. So in this case, equatorial low pressure belt will be created. Now just think about these poles in the north pole and the south pole. What happens in these poles? At the pole, the insolation is very less and it is less than 40%. As the insolation is less, automatically insolation कम होगा कारणरू एटी density अधिक रहिबो, and more the density means mass by volume. So volume एटी less रहिला, so that is why density is more. Density अधिक होगा कारणरू there will be sinking of the air. So जेतबेले air sink करे, that leads to high pressure, and when there is convection, upward movement of the airway, that leads to low pressure. So it is high pressure system create habo. What high pressure system it create hochi na, high pressure system on the in the poles. High pressure system is being created in the poles. So here is high pressure in the southern pole, also high pressure, and at the equator a low pressure belt is created, which is called equatorial low pressure belt. These three pressure belts, polar high pressure belt and equatorial low pressure belt, these three are called thermally induced. These three are called thermally induced. The next, equatorial low pressure belt ru eti insolation adhika hoଥିବା କାରଣରୁ now the wind will start moving in the upward direction, and when it will reach near the tropopause, it will condense and it will fall down. So there will be sinking of the air. So it is sinking होଥିବା कारणରୁ एटी high pressure create हब, and a high pressure एक subtropical high pressure belt बोली कहा जाए, STHB, subtropical high pressure belt. Now एटी high pressure create होची polar zone में high pressure create होची due to the sinking of the air, because temperature हमें कम होता देखते हैं, and that is why high pressure create हला. Now ये जो air देखते this air will start moving in the equatorward direction. तो एटी देखो जब देखिए ताले अर्थ रे एटी वॉल्यूम एटी इंक्रीज करछि, पोल रु जेतबेले इक्वेटर वर्ड आसंती सेतबेले वॉल्यूम इंक्रीज करे, बाय इक्वेटर रु पोल वर्ड गले वॉल्यूम डिक्रीज करे, लेकिन सर्कल एटी धीरे धीरे ये सर्कल वॉल्यूम डिक्रीज ही जाउछि. सो पोल वर्ड डिक्रीज, इक्वेटर वर्ड इट इज इंक्रीजिंग, it is increasing, and hence polar high pressure belt ru ये wind जेतबेले air mass जेतबेले move करिवो equator वर्ड, it is volume एटी increase होछि. So less amount, the same amount of air, it needs to be accommodated in the more volume. ये अधिक वॉल्यूम रे accommodated होबा पड़िबो. So volume जेतबेले accommodate हबो, automatically it will lead to volume increase होतबा कारण it will lead to low pressure, and hence at this point a low pressure belt will be created, which is called subpolar low pressure belt. It is called subpolar low pressure belt. I repeat. So हम देखले कि at the equator equatorial low pressure belt is created, then at the subtropics this is subtropical high pressure belt is created, here subpolar low pressure belt is created, and here it is polar high pressure belt is created. So एटी देखंतु equatorial low pressure belt मु कहली जेतबेले ये upward movement करूची, upward movement कला परे it will sink, and it will sink near the subtropical high pressure belt. तो एटी जदी वॉल्यूम देखिबे again the same thing happens, एटी वॉल्यूम जति के अछि वॉल्यूम एटी डिक्रीज करछि, तो लैटिट्यूड पॉलिट्यूड वॉल्यूम डिक्रीज करो, सर्कल डिक्रीज होछ. सो फॉर दैट पर्पस सेम अमाउंट रो एयर इक्वेटोरियल लो प्रेशर रो जोटा हाई प्रेशर बेल्ट को जाउछि, माने इन द अपर एटमॉस्फेयर कथा कहउछि, जोटा जाउछि दैट विल दैट नीड्स टू बी अकोमोडेटेड इन द लो वॉल्यूम, कम वॉल्यूम रे लेस वॉल्यूम रे एको अकोमोडेटेड होबा पड़ो. सो वॉल्यूम एटी कमीबा कारण मास बाय वॉल्यूम रे v कम हेले ऑटोमेटिकली डेंसिटी विल इंक्रीज, एंड डेंसिटी इंक्रीज हेले हम जानि चंती इट विल लीड टू हाई प्रेशर. So here high pressure will be created, जहाँ हमें STHP बा subtropical high pressure बोली कहले. I hope this is clear. यदि डाउट आछी कोंतो, यदि डाउट आछी कोंतो. So finally एठी हम कोन देखले ना, this is equatorial low pressure belt, this is subtropical high pressure belt, This is subpolar low pressure belt and this is polar high pressure belt. This is polar high pressure belt. हमें total एतिकी belt एटी देखले. Okay. So now let's continue. आगे को देखिए. ये ला pressure belt. In the same way, southern hemisphere भी सेमती create हुआ थी. Subtropical high pressure belt, subpolar low pressure belt, and this is polar high pressure belt. So total कितना belt create हुआ? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. या भीतर देखिले हमें 1 and 7. 1, 7 polar high pressure belt plus 4 equatorial low pressure. They are thermally induced. Thermally induced means they are induced by the by the sunlight, solar energy ऊपर ये depend करके induce होचे. And others 2, 3, 5 and 6 they are dynamically induced. Dynamically induced. So thermal induction ने दीटा प्रकार जिनसे हम देखते ले उठले amount of insolation केते insolation आसुची तो insolation ए जोन ने अधिक थिला ए जोन ने insolation कम हैला पर that is less than 40%. Angle of incidence same way जदि देखिबे angle of incidence एटी sun रो एटी direct hitting then angle of incidence एटी increase करी करी जाउची. So angle of incidence बढ़िवा कारण insolation कम हो जाउची. ये दीटा thermal factor बोली हमें discuss कले. Now let's discuss about other dynamic factors which affect the pressure belt. Dynamic factors. The first dynamic factor is the rotation of the earth or the earth rotation. Earth rotation केमती करती ना earth rotates from west to east. It rotates from west to east. Now when the earth rotates along with the earth, automatically there will be rotation of the atmosphere. Atmosphere will rotate करिवो earth चारि पटरे जो atmosphere अछि because atmosphere is there due to the gravity. So जेहेतु gravity pulls the atmosphere towards the surface along with the rotation of the earth, the atmosphere will also revolve and hence a deflection will be created in the northern hemisphere. Winds will be deflected towards their right in the northern hemisphere and they will be deflected towards left in the southern hemisphere. And this deflection will the force which creates this deflection is nothing but known as Coriolis force. By a effect को हमें Coriolis effect बोली कहते. And this Coriolis force it affects only the direction, not the speed. Speed is not affected by the Coriolis, it affects only the direction. First point. Second point related to Coriolis force is more the speed, more will be the Coriolis force pronounced. Speed अधिक वाले automatically Coriolis force भी increase हो. Second. Third, Coriolis force is more at the pole and it is or maximum at the pole and it is minimum at the equator. It is minimum at the equator. Why? Because the Coriolis force depends upon some factor that is 2 pi omega sin theta. This sin theta रो जदि आमे value देखिबा sin theta रो maximum value sin 90 रे हुए sin that is equals to 1 and sin theta रो minimum value sin 0 degree रे हुए that is equals to 0 degree. So 0 degree आमे equator रे पाइबा and 1 value माने 0 value equator and 1 value आमे pole रे पाइबा. So for that purpose this total value will be maximum when sin theta is maximum, it will be minimum when sin theta is minimum. Sin theta maximum केतेबेले? Sin theta maximum होबो at the pole and sin theta minimum होबो at the equator. So Coriolis force will be maximum at the pole and it will be minimum at the equator. The next factor that affects the wind speed is the friction. In the lower atmosphere, the friction is more because in the lower atmosphere there will be different structures which are there and they will prevent the wind flowing. So a wind is more, it gets more friction in this one, but in the upper atmosphere the friction is very less. In this case, in the upper atmosphere, the friction either it is less or it is negligible or it is equivalent to 0. But in the lower atmosphere, friction is pronounced more. The value of friction is more. In the upper atmosphere, when friction is equals to 0 or negligible, and when the Coriolis is more, PGF pressure gradient force is maximum. At that point of time, the wind which is prevailing is called geostrophic wind. The wind which is prevailing is nothing but called the geostrophic wind. In this case, this geostrophic wind जो हमें देखले, इटी हम कौन पाइले ना ये जो force resultant force देखते हैं, that will be equals to the PGF plus Coriolis force. The next PGF, pressure gradient force. So to understand this, you need to understand the term gradient. Gradient means change in the property of any substance with respect to change in the property of a substance with respect to change in distance. Distance change हेले तो property change हुए, हमें ताको gradient बोली कहते हैं. So pressure gradient केमती create हुए ना दीटा जो नची जो pressure difference आसिला, ताको हमें pressure gradient बोली कहवा. This is now here pressure gradient will be created. ये high pressure, it low pressure. So wind will start flowing from the high pressure to low pressure. तामने empty wind flow करियो. Wind ये वाले flow करियो करता है. So जो wind PGF देखो चंदे, this PGF has two components. प्रत्येक force रो दीटा component था. empty रो कोटे force आसे. यार दीटा component था जानते हैं. The first is this is the PGF. It has the horizontal component and this is the vertical component. Now this vertical component, when because gravity is here, earth is here, so earth रा gravity बर्तने यहाँ पर effect पकेगो. So gravitational force G, when the value of pressure gradient force vertical component will be equal to the gravity of the earth, it is got equilibrium create हुए, and that equilibrium is known as hydrostatic equilibrium. Hydrostatic equilibrium बोली कहते. So PV and G, they will cancel out with each other. Both PV and G, they will cancel out with each other. So final net force will be pressure PH plus PV plus Coriolis force plus friction. Now the and G, gravity. So horizontal force, vertical force and gravity, they cancel out, and what remains is the pressure gradient force horizontal component plus Coriolis force plus friction. And in the upper atmosphere, the value of friction will be 0. Hence the equation will be the net or resultant force will be PH plus C, Coriolis force. Hope this is clear. So these are the factors that affect the pressure belt or the pressure on the surface of the earth. And there is another law which is called Bivallet's law. Due to Coriolis effect, what happens? If a person standing in the northern hemisphere and his face is towards the pole and back is towards the equator, then more pressure is experienced in the right side. High pressure is there in the right side and low pressure is there in the left side. That's high pressure or low pressure. And this is due to the effect of Coriolis. This is the effect of Coriolis force. This is called Bivallet's law. This law is nothing but known as Bivallet's law. So summarizing today's topic of discussion, we can discuss we discussed about different pressure belts. Pressure belt discussion kale एठी pressure कौन आमे देखले atmospheric, what is atmospheric pressure and how different atmospheric माने what are the factors that affect the atmospheric pressure आमे देखले and देखले thermally के induced होची equatorial low thermal high polar high pressure belt and dynamic है subtropical high pressure and uh, subtropical high pressure है dynamic and dynamic temperate low pressure belt also subpolar low pressure and thermally देखले कि polar high pressure equatorial low pressure and the south polar high pressure ये create होची this is all about the pressure and the pressure belt how they are created in the next session I will discuss about atmospheric circulation why it is required and what is its significance this is one of the important topic and many times it is confusing so that is I have tried my best to make it simple and in my upcoming classes I will complete the entire syllabus of geography for civil service preparation OS प्रिपरेशन प्री कम मेन्स हिसाब रे मु कंप्लीट करिवि वर्तमान अनएकेडमी प्लस रे जियोमॉर्फोलॉजी एंड क्लाइमेटोलॉजी रो कोर्स मोर कंटिन्यू होची या व्यतीत पॉलिटी कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन इकोनॉमिक्स रो कोर्स मध्ये कंटिन्यू होची हिंदू एडिटोरियल एनालिसिस रो कोर्स मो रिसेंटली लॉन्च करछि एंड दैट इज आल्सो कंटिन्यूइंग समीक्षा बैच लॉन्च हिची आज टू व्हिच is a pre-com mains batch for the upcoming OPSC examination so to join Unacademy plus use this referral code EGOS to get 10% subscription discount upon your subscription amount प्रत्येक यहाँ पर explanation description box रे मु देछि you can check it out and you can follow the link to join Unacademy so thank you everyone see you in the next class good night